Good morning and happy Valentine's Day from your friendly local meteorologist. It's Friday, February 14th, 2025. I'm Senior Atmospheric Scientist Andrew Pritchard from Nutrien Ag Solutions. Quick discussion of weather hazards as we head into the weekend. We've got a coast-to-coast storm system right now bringing winter storm impacts along the cold side of that to the north from the western U.S. into the Great Lakes in the northeast. And then we've got an overlapping risk for severe thunderstorms and flooding as we go through the weekend across parts of the Ohio Valley down toward the Gulf Coast. Now, as we start off with the satellite picture here, infrared, you see the big swirling area of low pressure, a lot of fast jet stream flow out ahead of that. So we're going to open the Gulf of Mexico back up. We just had a cold front sweep through. You can see it extending from the departing area of low pressure here, kind of departing the northeast, heading off toward the North Atlantic. Again, a cold front extending from that. So all the deep moisture is here down over the Gulf. We'll start to see that transported northward in advance of this approaching storm system. So right now, bringing wintry impacts to the northern and the central Rockies, parts of the Sierras, kind of seeing those winter impacts taper off. This disturbance continues west to east over the next 48 hours. So here we go, a rundown of weather risks over the next couple of days. We got that western U.S. winter storm ongoing right now. We'll kind of talk about what's going on there. We have a couple waves that follow this one, bringing additional precipitation into early next week. We'll talk about here just for a moment. But here's the big trough in the western U.S. now. A series of disturbances kind of lined up behind that. So let's just animate this over the next couple of days. Let me go ahead and jump back here. We'll keep it on the northern hemisphere view. Again, the first trough swings through. And then you just see these glancing blows from, if I could keep my cursor here steady. All right, we're going to blame it on one last day of COVID here. We watched the first wave come through this weekend. We watched another one make its way through here as we get into Saturday night, into Sunday. And then the next one gives a glancing blow of moisture as we get into, this would be midweek, Wednesday into Thursday, February 19th and 20th. Now we'll get to the precipitable water one that really wanted to show itself here. We'll animate this, and this is where you can see the moisture come in. So the first storm departs. Here's another round of moisture this weekend, and then we get another one here as we get toward midweek. Here we go, Wednesday into Thursday. So the impacts from this, again, ongoing. We've got snow across the northern and central Rockies back toward the Sierras. That tapers off as we head through the day today into the overnight. And then this area of low pressure, this big trough continues off toward the east. And it's the trailing disturbances here that come through over the weekend into mid next week. This is your Saturday night, Sunday. Seeing that next round of moisture in the Pacific Northwest moving into northern California. That takes us through the day Sunday. This one kind of sneaks in through the northern and central Rockies. It's going to make its way into the northern and central plains by the time we get to early next week. So now we're into a lull here early next week, Monday. This is your Tuesday. Here you go, Wednesday, next round comes in. Again, starting in the Pacific Northwest, just kind of running down the coast. This one probably the least impactful as far as, total precipitation, total moisture, and any sort of winter storm impacts. But yet another round of coastal precipitation and snow in the higher terrain. So side by side, total liquid precipitation and then total snowfall. This is all the way through Wednesday, February 19th. So you again see significant coastal precipitation here, significant snowfall across the Sierras, and then additional snowfall in the northern and central Rockies. That is good to see. Of course, you note the dry spot here. We do get some moisture in Southern California and down in towards parts of the southwestern U.S., but it really trails off there. We're not adding much in the way of snowpack to the central and southern Rockies there. And as we talk about the storms that come in trailing this one that has been impacting the area over the last 24 hours or so, again, the one that comes in Saturday night and then the one that comes in Wednesday, Thursday, not as tightly wound up, not as high impact. So when we look at wind gusts across the region over the next 5 to 6 days, your maximum wind gust is going to be breezy at times, but these are not really high wind events Saturday, Sunday, or Wednesday, Thursday. Let's move it off to the south and the east. We'll talk about that severe weather and flood risk across the southern U.S. This is the severe weather outlook for Saturday, February 15th. We've got an enhanced risk on that day 2 severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. I think we'll be looking at a pretty organized, pretty high-end severe weather event here, and I think it's going to take the form of a squall line. So by the time we get to Saturday evening, into the Saturday overnight, possibly all the way into Sunday morning, I think we'll be looking at kind of a southwest to northeast oriented squall line that's going to be producing damaging winds with embedded rotating storms in there that could be producing some tornadoes as well. So I think that the Saturday into Sunday timeframe, we're going to see a lot of wind damage reports and a smattering of tornado reports within this corridor from East Texas all the way up to Tennessee down toward the Florida Panhandle and portions of Georgia. Now, to the north of that, we've got a pretty high risk. I mean, well, using the wrong word there, it's moderate right now, but I wouldn't actually be surprised to see some of this corridor here upgraded to a high risk. I think we're going to have repeated rounds of torrential rain producing showers and thunderstorms kind of along the warm front here that's going to be oriented kind of in this southwest to northeast fashion. So the setup here, on the left, we have the upper level winds. On the right, we have the lower level winds. And so we've got the big trough swinging through. We got a big area of southwesterly flow broadly spaced out across the region. So we've got this large, expansive low-level jet that stretches from East Texas through the Mid-South all the way into the Mid-Atlantic, where you see those winds in the lower levels out of the south-southwest anywhere from 50 to 60 knots. That's going to be transporting a lot of moisture northward, kind of running up and along that frontal boundary. So this is not the strongest, most wound up, compact area of low pressure. But what this does is it gives you kind of this multi-day period where we've got really deep moisture running along our frontal boundary that for, 24 to 36 hours is kind of in this orientation from East Texas into the Ohio River Valley. And so we've got instability on the south side of that. Again, sorry, I thought that was an animation. As the moisture is pulled northward, we'll have an unstable air mass south of that frontal boundary. So we're going to initiate a lot of thunderstorms. And initially, as we go through Friday night into Saturday, it's going to be a flood risk kind of along this frontal boundary where we've got that warm air advection, that moisture being drawn northward up and along that frontal boundary. So this is Saturday morning. Let's wind it back here to Friday evening. So it'll be pretty quiet Friday evening, maybe a couple of scattered showers and storms across the Mid-South into the Delta. Things really start to ramp up Saturday morning. Look for this heavy rain to start becoming widespread across the Ohio Valley into the Mid-South, down toward the Delta region. This is Saturday midday. This is now Saturday mid-afternoon, and this is Saturday evening. And now this is when the risk starts to include that severe weather outbreak potential as we get toward probably late in the day Saturday before things really come together. And that means the front gets oriented kind of more in a north to south fashion, kind of sharpens up, and we've drawn some instability northward. So now we have that combination of warm and moist air here in the warm sector. We've got strong low-level jet. We've got a strong mid and upper-level jet stream. So storms want to organize, they want to be severe, and they want to rotate in some instances here. And it's the kind of the alignment here. And I don't want to spend too much time getting into the specifics, but the way that this is kind of oriented, it's not straight upright north-south. It's kind of got that tilt there southwest to northeast. The frontal boundary, the low-level jet, and the upper-level winds here, they're all kind of in that southwest to northeast fashion. And so when you get that, you don't get so much the spacing between thunderstorms, the discrete supercells there. You get more of just a solid line of thunderstorm activity. You get that squall line, but given the magnitude of the wind fields, you can still get rotating thunderstorms within that. So that's why I think we get this widespread risk for severe storms that are producing damaging winds, but also with that risk for embedded tornadoes here. So I think it's going to be a long, loud, potentially dangerous night, across parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, maybe all the way up into Kentucky near the Ohio River Valley, eventually into Alabama, Georgia, maybe the Florida Panhandle here. So just timing it out one more time. Saturday, this is the morning when the flood risk begins to get going here across the Mid-South into the Ohio Valley. Look at Saturday mid-afternoon, Saturday evening, and now the squall line continues across the region Saturday night into Sunday morning. This is that time frame when I expect, widespread damaging winds and the potential for tornadoes as well. I think it has the potential to be a pretty dangerous night here with widespread severe weather. So let's go ahead and let's shift off to the north, look at the cold side of this storm system. We're starting to get some of those winter weather advisories and winter storm watches across the region. Let's just time this out for you. This is your Friday. It's quiet across the region. This is where I'm kind of looking. The Great Lakes states here, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, into the northeast. So let's take it through Saturday morning. At the same time that the flood risk gets started across the Mid-South and the Ohio Valley, we'll start to see the winter precipitation filling in across the north side of the storm system. So this is Saturday afternoon. This is Saturday evening. This takes us into Saturday night, and then Sunday morning, the area of low pressure getting Pretty wrapped up here across the Northeast. Look for a freezing rain risk here across parts of the Northeast. Also a freezing rain risk here across parts of the central eastern Corn Belt states is what I'm trying to say. Central parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. I'll show you that here in a moment. Total snow and ice accumulation. And then we get into Sunday night and Monday morning, and this thing really is wrapped up, producing winter storm conditions across the Northeast. Bitterly cold air filters in on the back side of this, another Arctic outbreak, and kind of with that, you can get little disturbances here that are being really forced along the Rockies and into the plains. We've got a disturbance that's going to be coming out of the Pacific Northwest into the Central Plains at the same time. So it could be that we get some flurries and corridors of additional snow here early next week before the potential for another organized storm system as we get into mid next week. This is going to change a lot over the next couple of days, so we'll save it for next week to talk about. I wanted to show the winds here because they are not terribly strong across the Great Lakes. As we see them coming out of the north at the same time, we've got this, snow ongoing across the region. We're talking about northerly winds, maybe 10 to 15 miles per hour. Winds become more of a factor as this area of low pressure wraps up into the northeast. So I think higher chance for winter storm warning conditions across the northeast, probably more of a winter weather advisory across Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, with some enhancement across parts of Michigan from the lake there. So total snowfall, total freezing rain accumulation potential again. From parts of southeast Nebraska along the Iowa-Missouri border into central Illinois, and then parts of central Indiana, Ohio, maybe southern Michigan. Not really talking about ice storm potential here, but it could be slick Friday night into Saturday morning with some of the freezing rain mixing in here as temperatures kind of fluctuate along the freezing mark. Same thing across the Northeast. I don't think we're looking at ice storm potential as far as, catastrophic damage or ice storm warnings, but it's going to be slick in some of these areas here as temperatures, again, fluctuate along the freezing mark. Precipitation kind of bounces back and forth between rain, freezing rain, sleet, and eventually snow. You can see where the heavier snow is expected across parts of the Great Lakes into the Northeast with, another inch or two across parts of Iowa, northern and central Illinois, into parts of central Indiana and Ohio as well. So I mentioned winter storm warning, winter weather advisory and winter storm watches starting to become commonplace here across the Great Lakes in the Northeast. I imagine those will start to fill in a bit more as well. Probably I-74 down to I-70 is the cutoff here before you get between wintry impacts to the north and then rainy impacts off to the south of that. Last thing I want to mention, the Arctic outbreak. We got several days of really bitterly cold air coming into the parts of the central U.S. And this one really, though we've had several already this winter, could be probably the most severe and longest lasting Arctic outbreak that we see this year or during the winter season. Probably going to rival what we saw back in 2021. So you see it come settling in, and this is going to make it all the way down to the Gulf Coast once again with some, dangerously cold air, some potentially record-breaking cold as we get into the early and middle part of next week before we start to see it fade about a week from now. So we'll kind of zoom in on the central U.S., look at the forecast overnight lows and morning temperatures. So Saturday morning, this is now Sunday morning. Here is Monday morning. This is when that coldest air starts to fill in across the region. We're talking about overnight lows around minus 30 across parts of the Dakotas, minus, sub-zero, getting down into parts of the central Corn Belt. And then here is the coldest extent of it is going to be mid next week, Wednesday and Thursday. This is when we're talking about, potentially record-breaking cold getting all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Once again, sub-freezing temperatures here. This is, again, 18, 19, 20 degrees for the forecast overnight lows. Sub-zero here where we transition from blue to that lighter white-green shaded color here. So sub-zero temperatures getting down, potentially all the way into parts of northern Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, certainly Missouri and Illinois, parts of Michigan seeing those sub-zero temperatures next week with daytime highs in the single digits and the teens. So this is going to be, again, a widespread, long-lasting, rather severe cold snap that I don't mean to, save for the very end of this video. It's just that we'll be talking about it next week as well. So I wanted to hit some of these shorter term impacts a little bit sooner in the video. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to go ahead and just stop talking here, but we've got severe weather in the south, flooding rains in the mid-south, parts of the Ohio Valley, chance for some more winter storm impacts across the Great Lakes and the Northeast, and a whole lot of cold headed for the central and southern United States as we head through the next week. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you again Monday morning.